Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. Flat Earth Homeland, Ozark Plateau Remnant Refugee Relocation Association Headquarters, HQ. I'm going to do a video, a shout out, or just a shorty sometime about off-grid Ozark family, or Ozark off-grid family, Ozark off-grid family, Chris and Bob, Jim, Ralph. Jim, I think is his name. Anyway, and I apologize again, guys, but Chris does most of the talking. She did a video a while back, and just go to that and look it up. It's if you're thinking about moving to the Ozarks, and just a lot of good, really good advice. And I'm amazed that I've said it before, in her schedule, with everything that they've got going on and surviving, that she took the time to do that. So go watch that. Give her a good shout out. Give her a support. A lot of people. She was against that. I figured out what the deal was. She was standing out, just out in the open, and probably 30, 40 feet behind her is a line of trees, and she was, shifting her weight from one foot to the other and kind of moving around. And a lot of people wrote in and said, "Man, I'm seasick now. Stop moving. That's terrible. Don't do that." And she's apologizing. And one guy that I wrote under, Tim something, I always go to their channel. Like I said, nothing there. Sock puppet account, empty head. Don't even know that he's human. Could just be a name. They have bots. They have computers that just sift the internet and government operation to slam people that are trying to do something positive. The guy has nothing going on. Empty account. I call bullshit. So bullshit. All right. Now I'm going to read scripture. But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we builded the wall, he was wroth and took great indignation and mocked the Jews. This is Nehemiah 4. And he spake before his brethren in the army of Samaria and said, "What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned?" Now Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and he said, "Even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Hear, O our Elohim, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity. And cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work." We need people with a mind to work, not sit on their lazy asses and expect things to be handed to them. Okay? I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody in particular. Oh, well, I don't need it. That's just a clicker thing. So, we need people that are willing to work and of a mind to work. Okay? All right. Asperger's, whatever you want to call it, compulsive learning disorder, attention deficit disorder. So we builded the wall. They actually got something done. But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up and that the breaches began to be stopped, then were they very wroth. Okay? So, it said in verse 1, it said Sanballat, when he heard blah, 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 he was wroth. Okay, well now they got half the wall done. Now he was very wroth. So, and conspired, this is a conspiracy. This is a conspiracy, okay? They conspired, all of them, together. They conspired against Yahweh and against his anointed and said, "Come, let this man, we won't have this reign over us, to come and to fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our Elohim and set a watch against them day and night." because of them. You got to have people that are able, not just able, but and willing, but have a predilection, a bent towards staying up all night. One time I had just gotten a Droid phone, Droid Razor Max, and I didn't know nothing about it. I didn't know how to operate it. I've told the story before. I'm going to tell it again. For whatever reason, Google Earth was loaded on it. Okay, and it was 3:30, about 3:30, it probably was 3:33. I walk over to the kitchen sink and I'm like, Lord, why am I always up all night long, so regularly? And the answer was, because you're a watchman. I'm like, okay. And I looked down at the phone, and I don't remember any of this. I just remember very crystal clear that Google Earth was there, and it was scooped in, or it was oriented in such a way that across the bottom were these travelogues, Boston Mountains, travel things. And right in the middle of that, there were about 3 or 4 of them down there, and right in the middle was the Ozark Plateau. And I said, oh, that's me. Quote unquote, that's me. Oh, that's me. And I tapped it, and it focused. And as it focused, I had seen it was a parallelogram. If you look at it, it's to the northwest and down to the southeast, southwest, kind of the corner, and then up to the northwest. I mean, it's canted a little bit. And if you look at it, to draw a line between the bottom corner to the topmost corner, that points directly at Turtle Mountain. What that means, I don't know. I don't know either. So, but it means something. In other words, Turtle Mountain this may sound weird, do your own research. There's a book, Noah's Ark, Discovering the Science Behind Man's Oldest Mystery, written by Alan Moen, M-O-E-N, like the faucet, Moen faucets. So, long story, bunny trail. But in that book, he posits that Turtle Mountain, at the center, at the geographical center, in other words, at the point from which all rivers run away, there's no rivers there. All rivers go north, northeast, northwest, southwest, southeast. Okay, no rivers are there. No flooding. Can't be any flooding. It's a high point in the whole continent. It's the center of the continent. In the center of China is one of these. In the center of Africa is one of these. In the center of Australia is one of these. And South America is like so jungle. It's kind of hard to see anything. There are pyramids there that we don't know exist yet. They're finding them all the time everywhere. So the point is that his conjecture, kind of wondering, was this an operation by Noah, or was it before Noah? I'm going to say before, after, whatever. I don't know. But maybe it was many, many years after Noah when the population had increased, and they're like, hey, this needs to not ever happen again. And blah, blah, blah. I don't know why I have that up. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to put up. I was going to talk about it, and I need to do that, I guess. All right, get on with it. No bum bunny trails. So anyway, who knows what? But I could see on that little bitty Droid phone, a lot smaller screen than this thing, I could see exactly what he said. I could see a 50-mile wide plateau, arc of radius, looked like a piece of a pie, 1/3 of a pie, and a 30-mile, inside of that, a 30-mile. And the Indians there, and I know from relatives that live there who have met them, one guy worked with one, Mandan Indians, tall, 6 foot plus, blonde hair, blue-eyed Indians. When Thomas Jefferson sent Lewis and Clark out, he said, be sure and watch out for tall, white, blonde hair, Indians that speak Hebrew, Welsh Hebrew. And when they ran into the Mandan Indians, they started learning their language. They're like, how did he know? Well, when Thomas Jefferson was in the White House, when John F. Kennedy was in the White House, and they had a huge dinner of all the brain scientists, economists, politicians, all the upper echelon of intelligence in the world. And Kennedy looked around at the table and he said, "This is the greatest collection of minds that has dined at this table since Thomas Jefferson dined here alone." So, whatever. So anyway, the Mandan Indians, blonde hair, blue-eyed. The chief's name was Big White, when Lewis and Clark met him. And then in the center of Australia, you have a 95% chance of having white kids. Not white kids, yeah. Blonde? Yeah, blonde-haired children. 97% chance, something like that. Center of China, Urumqi, China, there's a buried chief, crown on his head, blonde hair still, after 3, 4, 5,000 years. So, no, they couldn't quite tell if his eyes were blue because, they weren't there, but, the hair was. Anyway, who knows? So, stop fidgeting. Okay, I'm sorry. Hey, all you trolls. Bizarre. All right. Oh, back to the scriptures. Okay. I'll just read the rest of it. Try with no comment. A little. Okay. Said, "Watch against them night and day because of them." And Judah said, "The strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall." And our adversary said, "They shall not know, neither see, till we come in the midst among them, and slay them, and cause the work to cease." And it came to pass that when the Jews which dealt by them came and said unto us 10 times, "From all places whence ye shall return unto us, they will be upon you. Therefore set I in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places I even set the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked, and rose up, and said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, Be not ye afraid of them. Remember Yahweh, which is great and terrible." Remember that. People, so easy to forget that. People just go, "Oh man, they're doing this, and they're doing that, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that." Remember Yahweh, who is great. Remember Yahweh, great, is great, and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons, and your daughters, your wives, and your houses. Between the war's desolation, between their homeland and war's desolation, the that racist Star-Spangled Banner. "And it came to pass when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and Elohim had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. And it came to pass from that time forth that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, and the bows, and the habergeons," big spears, "and the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. They which builded on the wall, and they which bare burdens, with those that laded, everyone with one of his hands he worked, and with the other hand he held a weapon." All right. "For the builders, everyone had his sword girded by his side, and so builded, and he that sounded the trumpet was by me." Now, Charles Spurgeon, my favorite preacher, for many years, his whole life, his whole ministry, published a newspaper that went out through all the world, "The Sword and the Trowel," and it was taken after this, and that's the text that's on it. In one hand wrought a trowel, and in the other hand a sword, held a weapon. "For the builders, everyone had his sword girded by his side, and so builded, and he that sounded the shofar," the trumpet, "was by me. And I said unto the nobles, and unto the rulers, and to the rest of the people, The work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall, one far from another." So we got that situation here now. We're too far separated. Now, communication is important. This is what this is talking about here, communication. "In what place, therefore, ye hear the sound of the shofar, resort ye thither to us, and our Yahweh shall fight for us." So we labored in the work, and half of them held the spears from the rising of the morning till the stars appeared. Likewise at the same time said I unto the people, let everyone with his servant lodge within Jerusalem, that in the night they may be a guard to us and labor on the day. So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard, which followed me, none of us put off our clothes, saving that everyone put them off for washing. In other words, they were stinky, and they stinketh. You know, they washed them once in a while, but other than that, they wore them 24/7, their boots and their whatever, their sandals. So, the sword and the trowel, they were rebuilding the wall, and that's what we're doing here is building an ark. We're building a wall, a place of safety, and that wall will not only be, well, it's not going to be a wall per se, like Trump's wall, but rather, the rivers are there, and there's, like I said, I'm not going to say too much more right now, but an infinite, a virtually unlimited source of energy in many, many ways. So I'll leave it at that for right now. 20. Yeah, verse 20. So Nehemiah 4:20. Remember that. Beat it into your head. In what place, therefore, you hear the sound of the trumpet, the shofar, resort ye thither unto us. Our Elohim shall fight for us. So, the trumpet. Now, number one, communications. I've said before, communications are weapons. And when I was pointing at the stuff up there, the tube, since I don't have, you're not going to be able to see this, but, see the glove up there? I don't know if you can see that or not, but the PVC tube, I said, well, that, kind of was symbolic of water supply. Also, it's a weapon. A 600 psi half-inch tube will fire cold steel darts very nicely. You make one that's not going to droop. You don't want it 4, 5, 6 feet, but 3 feet, 4 feet, pretty good. And just because of the sighting, your eyes, it's just a normal, perfectly natural sighting. Within seconds, you can be hitting pop cans at 50 feet, 75 feet. So, with the proper, with the cold steel, gun, blowgun. There's other brands, but 6.25 caliber, large caliber, half-inch fits it. I also forgot though that is also communications, because a PVC tube with a LED light, and you practice your Morse code, you have a line of sight where in other words, it's shrouded. So once you establish contact, bright light or something, you can communicate, and the only two people that can see and read the message is the person at either end. They both have to be versed in Morse code. So my grandson John is, he's ham radio, and he and I met Bob Heil. Look him up online, look him up on YouTube, listen to his testimony. One of the most stunning testimonies. I would have to actually bite my tongue bloody not to go into it, but I'd like to watch it. My mouth hung open. We went to hear him, or we didn't know he was going to be there. I was so excited all night long that I could barely sleep. I got maybe 1 hour sleep, like this day when I met with my daughter. I felt something awesome was going to happen that day. And we met him. And John came home with a guy, had this huge cable, ham radio cable. And he told John how awesome it was and everything, and we were about ready to leave. And I was sitting on the truck bed that he had, and I got off, and there was a slope there, and I was so dead tired, I staggered, just trying to catch my balance, catch, and the ground kept going out from under me, instead of leveling off. And I didn't fall, I didn't roll, I didn't have to do anything. I finally stopped, and I walked over. I said, John, we have to go. So we got over the car there, and the guy walks up with that. It was $350 worth of cable, brand new. And he had told John, he says, you're the future of communications. You are the future of ham radio. And he said, could you use this cable? And John goes, well, yeah. He goes, well, it's yours. He said, it's yours. It's a gift. So, really cool. But meeting Bob Heil was the thing. It was phenomenal. And he lives within, lives within spitting distance is not a terminology that's used everywhere around the country. I was talking to one lady the other day, and like from New York, I was like, she's like, "What did you say?" You know. But for them, it's something else. It's very similar and almost just as goofy. Anyway, Bob Heil is right down the road. You know, I kind of call him the Pope of communications, Pope of ham radio. And if I'm not mistaken, I've said this before, there's a tower going up, and it's like looks like a 200 footer. I don't know. Had a tall crane there, and they're putting the sections. The base of it was probably 15, 20 feet diameter. The one still sitting on the ground, most of it was up in the air. The two sitting on the ground were 8 and 10 foot diameter. So anyway, so when you hear the sound of the shofar, resort ye thither to us, and Yahweh will fight for us. So I showed this the other day, or talked about it, and quick story behind it is at the time my wife Elaine was going to help her mother, who was sick or something, or I don't know what. She's going down there, Tulsa, and it was going to be trumpets, you know. And so she stopped at a store, and specifically to get a little party. The only thing she could find was one of the little things that rolls out. So she's at her mom's house, and she starts blowing it. Her mom looks at her, and she goes like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And she goes, "It's trumpets, you know." So, and you know, it's like I'm pretending I'm blowing a shofar. Her mom gets this funny look on her face, walks in her bedroom, and comes out with this, and says, "This is from Israel. You can have it." So it's a ram's horn shofar. And it's hard to blow because the mouth thing is big, oval, very hard. But this thing is solid. I was so awed by it that I made this, you know, like carry it into battle thing with paracord. I almost never get that first time. Sometimes you have to mess with it. So anyway, and I wanted to do then an introduction to just this book. Read it. You know, very important book. Tap. Oh wait. I'm just going to read the intro and then a wee bit of show you the table of contents. Civil War II isn't just a nightmare anymore. Social, political, and economic forces are pulling America apart and driving her toward a bloody war that may fracture the nation into several different countries, divided along ethnic lines. Riots, gangs, militias, exploding crime rates, mass immigration, rising unemployment, falling wages. These are all factors that will fuel the fires of war. By the way, this is penned in about 1997. Okay, 20 years ago plus. Take an in-depth look at these dangerous trends with military analyst Tom Chittum in Civil War II. Learn why America is headed for trouble, how this deadly war already in its infancy is shaping up, and what you can do to protect yourself and your family. And then it cuts off. I don't know why. I don't remember who that was written by. And the contents: America, empire, or nation. Our unstable tiered society. Mao Zedong's rules for revolution, which they're following. The Mexican reconquista of our Southwest. He states that when the Hispanics are in control of the food supply in the Southwest, they essentially own and hold the Southwest. Well, I don't know when that happened, but it's been in that case. That's been the case for quite a while. Revolution in the Black South, apocalypse in the North. I do not remember that he foresaw the Muslim invasion of the North. You know, you have Wisconsin, Saudin, mini Somalia, Minnesota, and Michig, Iran. Basically, they're going to be taken over by Sharia law, and people are just rolling over for it. You know, the liberals are eating it up, and people aren't protesting, aren't you know, well, what can you do? But anyway. The Tribal Armies of Civil War II. Interesting title, that chapter. Urban street gangs, our military bases fall to siege, our police and military divide and crash, the militias, the vicious nature of Civil War II, ethnic enclaves, fortresses, or death traps, That's one of the most important chapters in it and concepts to get across. You know, you think you're safe in Tennessee because you're in mid-Tennessee. He points it out. In 1997, he says, this is an enclave. It will be an enclave. The definition of an enclave is a group of people, religious, ethnic people, who are completely surrounded by another ethnic or religious group and will be wiped out. Okay? So, they're not fortresses. Let's just put it that way. Who thinks America will break up? The bloody lessons of tribal Europe, establishment and imperial conversion, Waco Ruby Bridge, Oklahoma City, prepare yourself, Civil War II checklist, quotes, and about the author. So, the tribal armies of Civil War II. Pastor Joe Fox recommended this. I got it, and I got it I got the electronic edition too. But man, I was like, I'm gonna wait until I get the hard book so I can, just process it. It's too much. It was just too much. I mean, I can read 12 hours at a time online. And I started reading this, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna wait and get the hard copy so I can have a better handle for it. Because you got to flip back and forth, and it's just not quick. Very Viking-ish. Okay. Which Pastor Joe, being Viking preparedness, probably is eating it up. So for those of you who have Viking in your blood, Nordic, you'll probably eat that up. The terminologies are all geared toward Nordic mentality. So do we all have? A lot of us do have Gaelic Viking in our veins. So we're looking at a time of war. So oddly enough, there's a trilogy of CDs by Steve McDonald, masterful musician. In fact, Jonathan David Brown, I didn't know how awesome Jonathan David Brown was. I knew he was the producer for Petra's first 5 albums, all went platinum. But I asked him one time about Steve McDonald, and he goes, he was like, I'm not that good. And I was like, wow, So anyway, it's like asking Jimi Hendrix, who's the best guitar player in the world. I don't know, that's Phil Keaggy. But so Viking preparedness. Sons of Samaria, there's a trilogy. One is called Stone of Destiny. Has an awesome song in there called The Stone of Destiny, the title track. In a cure on off we go, over to Scotland's shore we row, to build a chapel there for the stone. Stone of Destiny, Jacob's pillar stone, went to Ireland. Jeremiah brought it to Ireland. Then it went to Scotland, and then it went to England. So I will overturn it, says that in the scripture 3 times. So that happened. Every king and queen of Ireland, Scotland, and England were crowned sitting on that stone. So anyway, Bunny Trail. Okay, yeah. So, Forging the Hero, Viking. One of the CDs is Sons of Summerlet, and it's a thematic CD. The whole CD is about the MacDonald clan and the royal lineage and all that, and the stone, somewhat. I don't know if it specifically addresses the stone, but it's in the other CD. That's what the whole CD, not the whole CD, but the first CD covers that. So, but anyway, so we're going to see some fighting. I don't think it's going to be here. It's going to be out, obviously, around the country. Pretty much like, I was doing the interview with Pastor Joe, and I was going like, well, Corey Ten Boom had this vision of, cattle grazing, green pastures, children playing, goats grazing, and outside everything was devastation, chaos, anarchy, pestilence, disease, famine, war. And Pastor Joe goes, inside good, outside bad. I'm like, yeah. That sums it up very nicely. So, time of war coming, So, one of the songs is, what's the name of it? Anyway, it goes, in an age of fighting men, when sword was mightier than pen, there lived a clansman bold and true, the very one our name came through. Gaelic Viking in his veins, testified his battle fame. 100 battles, warrior con. Anyway, it's an awesome song. I'm slaughtering it, but the idea being is, we're going to see some interesting times. I think we're going to have superior and supernatural help, but just because it's going to be a situation that we'll see miracles and whatnot doesn't mean that there's not going to be a lot of lead flying. So remember, that communications is key, and communications can be weapons, and a shofar is communication and weapon. Okay. When I was at the Pastor Michael Peebles from Dogwood, Missouri, he pastors a Nazarene church there, messianic, very, very, very heavily, very awesomely messianic, a true, sacred name, and Hebrew, whatever the whole thing. He's phenomenal. He's just a wonderful leader, godly man. When my whole thing was going down and I was being excommunicated by these yahoos, he said, "Well, it sounds like the Jezebels at work there." And I was like, "Boy, he hit that one on the head. Hit that nail on the head," because that was exactly what was going on. Happened. So he spoke at the First International Goshen Builders Conference, but I heard him speak once before at a meeting called Kingdom Community. And at that meeting, he made the statement. I was able to ask him at the Goshen meeting. He has a whole code system worked out for shofars. He told me that which carries farther, low pitch, high pitch, but a whole system based on the Hebrew alphabet, shofars, communications. So I consider it a weapon too, because I believe that it will affect the spirit, it goes out in the spiritual realm. We have a friend who had one, and she was in a bad part of the county, but there were coyotes one night. Coyotes getting close to their property, and so she went out and blew her shofar. And a while later, the neighbor, and if you understood what, coyotes are a wild animal like wolves, they're smaller, they're dogs like wild dogs, but her neighbor calls her up and says, "What did you do?" He said, "I have coyotes on my porch with the light on, and they're shivering." So I thought that was just awesomely cool. Yeah, they got the dung scared out of them, so they needed to get their little paddle and bury their dung. But yeah, a shofar is a weapon. So, all right, that's it. This was supposed to be a 5-minute thing, so I apologize. No, I don't. As Fletch says, I don't really care. I'm just trying to get stuff out there. I've got so many things on tap. Forging the hero, on leadership. I want to address leadership, and I have my book queued up to read. I'm going to do that, and I want to read Lights Out, which is 600 pages, but it'll just be a drawn out thing, and I'll do a chapter here and there as I'm able to. I thought about 1632. There's passages of that I would read. Ring of Fire. That's a book I highly recommend. I just loved it. Eric Flint. And then another really rough book, because it's got lots and lots of French in it, is, and I screenshot some of it, is The Last Centurion. But very important book, at least a chapter on the idea of ants and grasshoppers. Like I've said this before, people work, they get fed. People don't work, and it's biblical, If any man not work, let him not eat. Well, you cannot feed everybody in a crisis situation. Shouldn't be doing it now, Those people who are just freeloaders, not wanting to help out, just basically, sucking off of the, the rest of society. In a crisis situation, they're not going to be capable of doing anything. They're not going to have the skills. They're not going to have the discipline. They're not going to have the drive. They're not going to have the desire. They're not going to have the ability. They're not going to have the intelligence. How many more can you add to that? So, grasshoppers. Don't feed the grasshoppers unless you have lots and lots of extra food. So, preferably give them some food and say, bye, have a nice journey. Think it'll work? No, it'll take a miracle. Have fun storming the castle. Going down the road and storm the next castle. Just get out of our county. So, that's kind of what the sheriff here, one of the deputies, there's 100 people. 100% of the crime in this county is committed by 100 people. We know who they are. We know where they live. We know what they drive. We know what they look like, obviously. And we try to convince them that they would be happier living somewhere else. So, as things fall apart, we'll have what I would call trash day. You got to take the trash out. The trash truck just went by. Well, a lot of trash will be taken out by law enforcement, divine retribution. I've talked about that before. I believe that as we transition into the kingdom, that the law of God, meaning Old and New Testaments, the law of Yahweh, will, I don't know of a better way to put it, but will be in the process of becoming more and more in force. Okay? If that makes sense. Somebody messes up, they may not need to get dealt with, So, lightning strikes, fire happens, things happen, as Forrest Gump would say, it happens, So, all right, this is Jerry Diamond. If you're listening to it, not just in one ear and out the other. If you're listening to it, you are the remnant. All right, God bless.